Welcome to today's Explainer. We're exploring a massive, fundamental shift in how modern businesses actually operate. We are looking at how organizations are completely rethinking data collaboration from the ground up, all thanks to Snowflake's revolutionary secure data sharing architecture. So let's jump right in.
Okay, let's dive into this because the traditional reality of sharing data across organizations is, well, it's frankly painful. Think about how it usually works, right? You need to share some numbers with a partner. So you export a file, you shoot off an email, you wait for approvals. Actually, scratch that, you probably wait days for those approvals. And then they manually load that data into their own system. It's just a slow, friction-filled mess. And the worst part? By the time your partner actually opens that data, it's already outdated.
The old nightmare relies heavily on ETL pipelines, extracting, transforming, and loading. You're constantly exporting stale CSVs and literally paying duplicate storage costs because both you and your partner are storing the exact same data. But the Snowflake way, it completely eliminates this problem. It introduces this amazing zero-copy reality. The data never actually moves. You're running live queries and getting real-time collaboration instantly.
Here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with that stale data problem, explore the window not a photocopy mental model to find providers and consumers, look at 3 real-world ways to share, and finally lock the whole thing down with security and governance. I really want you to lean into this powerful mental model, a window, not a photocopy. This right here is the absolute core idea of Snowflake data sharing. Think about it. Once you hand someone a photocopy of a map or a spreadsheet, the second you update your original, their copy is instantly wrong. It's useless. But a window? A window always shows the live truth.
Let's take this analogy a step further. Imagine a hotel minibar. If the hotel prints out a list of what's inside, that's your photocopy. But what if, instead, there was a camera inside the minibar? That is a live, real-time feed of what's actually in there right now. If the minibar gets restocked, you instantly see the updated inventory without needing anyone to send you a new list. You are looking at the real thing without holding a copy.
To understand how this works under the hood, we need to define the 2 main players. First up, the data provider. Think of them as the hotel that owns the minibar. The provider is the Snowflake account that owns the original data. They create the share, they decide exactly what gets exposed, and, this is key, they are the only ones paying for the physical storage of that data.
On the other side of the equation, we have the data consumer. This is the guest looking at the camera feed. The consumer gets instant, read-only access to query the shared data. They can explore it, analyze it, run all their metrics. But there is a crucial limitation. They cannot insert, update, or delete the original data. It is strictly read-only.
Now, this brilliant separation is what makes the architecture so incredibly efficient. Snowflake entirely decouples storage and compute. The provider controls the source data and pays for the storage. But the consumer? They query that live data using their own virtual warehouses, meaning the consumer pays for the compute processing. So the costs stay with the person doing the processing work, not the person sharing the data. It's just a game changer for cost efficiency.
So how do businesses actually deploy this in the real world? Well, there are 3 main ways to share data in Snowflake. We have direct shares, which are great for one-to-one or one-to-few sharing. We've got data exchanges for publishing data to many groups, and we have reader accounts. Snowflake literally scales from sharing a single table with a trusted partner all the way up to massive public data marketplaces. Let's look at the playbook. Now, what's really interesting here is how 3 major enterprises use completely different sharing models depending on their audience. We have e-commerce giant Flipkart using direct shares, HDFC Bank using reader accounts for their regulators, and logistics leader Delivery using data exchanges for retail brands. Let's break down exactly how each of these works in practice.
Our first example is Flipkart. Imagine having over 50,000 sellers constantly asking for their performance metrics. The old way meant exporting CSVs every single night. Sellers got day-old data at best. But by using direct shares, Flipkart completely eliminated those nightly exports. Now, sellers instantly query live performance data, stuff like listing views, unit sales, and return rates, directly inside their own Snowflake accounts.
The technical workflow Flipkart uses is actually super simple. First, they create a secure view, and this is really where the magic happens. They use a SQL function called current account. This mathematically ensures that when a seller logs in, the data is automatically filtered so they only ever see their own rows, zero data leakage. Then they simply create the share, grant access, and add the seller accounts.
It's elegant and it's totally secure. Our second example brings us over to banking. HDFC Bank is legally mandated to provide the Reserve Bank of India, the RBI, with daily reports on liquidity and non-performing assets. The old painful way of doing this involved manually running SQL reports, exporting them to XML files, and uploading them to a clunky regulatory portal. It was prone to errors and entirely too easy to miss deadlines. Live data sharing completely eliminates all of that friction.
But wait, there's a catch here. What if the regulator doesn't even have a Snowflake account? Enter the reader account. While the standard consumer has their own license and pays for their own compute, our reader account allows HDFC Bank to literally create a specialized account for the RBI. The RBI gets full access without needing a Snowflake subscription, and the bank just covers the query compute costs. It's the ultimate flexibility for third-party sharing.
Our third scenario is in the logistics industry with delivery. They handle last-mile delivery for hundreds of major retail brands like Reliance Retail. Instead of building expensive, brittle, custom API integrations for every single client, delivery just gives these brands a live data exchange share. This feeds real-time shipment tracking and SLA breach alerts directly into the client's own Power BI dashboards. No APIs required. Okay, we've talked a lot about sharing, but now we really need to shift our focus to security. What exactly is a secure view? Think of it like a frosted window. When you invite a guest into your home, you might want them to see the living room, but absolutely never the bedroom. A secure view ensures consumers only see these specific columns and rows you explicitly allow, completely preventing them from seeing your underlying base tables or any of the proprietary SQL logic you use to calculate those metrics.
Because obviously, this isn't the Wild West. Providers have massive guardrails built right in. You can enforce strict role-based access. You can use column-level masking to strip out personally identifiable information, like replacing account numbers with asterisks, before the data ever even hits the share. Access is entirely revocable at any time, and every single query is authenticated automatically through Snowflake's cloud services layer.
So the crucial point is how you actually structure your environment. The absolute best practice here is physically separating your data. Your internal schema holds your raw, highly sensitive base tables. Only the provider accesses this. Your external share schema is completely separate. It exposes only the masked, aggregated, secure views to the consumer. This separation is your ultimate safety net.
Operationally, it comes down to a few straightforward steps. First, classify your sensitive data. Second, always build and share secure views instead of raw tables. This is absolutely vital because if you ever need to change your backend database structure, the consumer's queries won't suddenly break. Third, audit everything by tracking usage via Snowflake access logs. And fourth, definitely set up resource monitors so you can keep a close eye on compute costs, especially if you're using reader accounts.
Let's bring it all together for a quick recap of today's explainer. Snowflake Data Sharing allows you to share a live window, not a stale photocopy. Because there is zero data movement, you completely eliminate brittle ETL pipelines. The architecture brilliantly separates costs. Providers pay for storage, consumers pay for compute. And through secure views, your sensitive logic and PII are always protected. This truly is a fundamental shift in how modern business intelligence operates. Which leaves me with a question for you. Look at your own organization right now. Think about how many outdated, emailed CSVs are currently floating around between your teams, your partners, and your vendors. Is real-time, zero-copy data sharing the future of your business? I highly encourage you to think about how this architectural shift could completely change the way you collaborate. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.